The wedding bells didn't sound like music to Isabella Russo. They sounded like chains. Her reflection in the mirror showed a trembling bride dressed in ivory lace, eyes wide with dread. Behind her, her father's hand pressed down on her shoulder, firm, final. "You'll marry Dante DeLuca," he said coldly. "And you'll save this family." She'd heard of Dante, the ruthless Mafia Don of New York. A man whispered about in fear, known for burning down a rival's mansion with everyone still inside. Rumor said he had no heart. The church doors opened and there he was. Tall, dark suit, cold eyes that could kill or command. He looked more like a shadow than a man. As she walked toward him, Isabella's fingers trembled around the bouquet. Every step felt like walking to her own execution. When the priest asked, "Do you take this man?" she hesitated. Her father's glare sliced through her like a knife. I do," she whispered. Dante's "I do" came deep and smooth, like a promise she couldn't read. Hours later, the celebration raged outside, but their suite was silent. Isabella sat at the edge of the bed, clutching her gown. The air was thick with tension. He stood by the window, his tie undone, his gaze unreadable. Finally he spoke. "I won't touch you," Dante said. "Not until you want me to." She looked up, startled. "You don't have to pretend," she muttered, her voice shaking. "I know what this is. I'm just payment." His jaw clenched. Maybe that's how it started. But it doesn't have to stay that way. For a moment their eyes met, his coldness against her fear, and something flickered. A spark neither of them expected. When he turned to leave, he added quietly, "Sleep well, Mrs. DeLuca. You're safe under my roof. Even from me." And for the first time that night, Isabella wondered if the devil she married might have a soul after all. Days passed in uneasy silence inside the DeLuca mansion. Isabella moved like a ghost, her soft footsteps echoing against marble floors. The servants bowed to her, calling her Mrs. DeLuca, but she couldn't feel like anyone's wife, certainly not the wife of the most feared man in New York. Dante left early, returned late. Always in suits, always unreadable. Sometimes she'd catch him watching her from across the dining table, his gaze sharp but never invasive. He spoke little, but when he did, his voice held power that made everyone else fall silent. Everyone except her. One evening she found the courage to ask, "Why did you marry me really?" He didn't look up from his glass. "Your father owed me a debt. You were his currency." The truth sliced through her chest like a blade. "So I'm your property." Dante finally met her eyes, dark, intense. "If that's what I wanted, you'd already know it." He stood and left, leaving her shaking between anger and confusion. That night, she threw her pillow across the room and cried. But the next morning she saw something that made her pause, his jacket draped over her chair. A note pinned to it read, "You'll catch a cold if you keep sleeping by the window." Her heart skipped. The Don of New York had noticed her, cared in his own strange way. Later, while pouring tea, her hands slipped. The hot liquid burned her skin. She winced and hissed. Dante was there in seconds, catching her wrist. His thumb brushed the redness, gentle, protective. "Careful," he murmured. "You're too fragile for pain." Her breath caught. "You think I'm weak?" He smirked faintly. "No. Just untouched by the world. That's rarer than you think." Their eyes locked, his command met her defiance, and for a heartbeat the space between them disappeared. Then he let go, stepping back like he was afraid of his own desire. From that night, Isabella noticed something new in his gaze, not ownership, but restraint. And that frightened her even more. The night the storm came, Isabella couldn't sleep. Thunder cracked over the DeLuca mansion, shaking the windows. Each flash of lightning threw Dante's shadow across the hallway as he moved, silent and restless. She sat on the bed, hugging her knees. The storm reminded her of the night her father made the deal, the night she stopped believing in love. When another crash echoed, she flinched and gasped. Then her door opened. Dante stood there, shirt slightly unbuttoned, eyes dark in the low light. "You're awake," he said softly. I couldn't sleep." He stepped closer. "You're shaking." "I'm fine," she lied. But when the thunder roared again, her body betrayed her. She pressed her palms over her ears like a frightened child. Before she could stop herself, she felt his hands on her shoulders, steady, warm, grounding. "Easy," he whispered. "You're safe here." Something in his voice melted her fear. Slowly she lowered her hands, meeting his gaze. The storm faded behind them, replaced by the sound of their breathing. Her heart pounded. He was so close. Too close. "Dante," she whispered, "why are you being kind to me?" He hesitated, searching her face. Because you don't know what kindness feels like. And I want to change that. Her lips parted, her pulse racing. When his fingers brushed a strand of hair behind her ear, the touch burned through her like fire. Her body trembled. It hurts, she breathed, her voice trembling. It's my first time feeling this. Dante froze. The muscles in his jaw tightened. He withdrew his hands slowly, his restraint visible in every movement. I won't hurt you, he said quietly. Not tonight. Not ever. He turned to leave, but she caught his sleeve. Then, why does it hurt? He gave a faint, broken smile. Because it's real. And then he was gone, leaving her heart pounding in the darkness, unsure if she feared him, or the way he made her feel. It happened the next afternoon. Isabella had gone out with Dante's driver to the market, her first trip outside the mansion since the wedding. The air felt different out there, freer. She smiled for the first time in weeks. But freedom never lasts in a world built on blood. A black SUV pulled up beside their car. Men in masks. Guns. Screams. Within seconds she was dragged away, blindfolded, crying Dante's name. Hours later, in an abandoned warehouse, the men laughed. The Don's little virgin wife, one sneered. He'll come crawling for her. They were right. When the doors exploded open, the sound was deafening. The ground shook as Dante DeLuca stepped in, coat drenched from rain, eyes burning with pure fury. In his hand wasn't a gun. It was a belt. Thick, black leather, engraved with the DeLuca crest. The same one his father had used to discipline him, the one he swore he'd never raise in anger again. But tonight it was war. He moved like a storm, each strike cold, precise, merciless. The belt cracked through the air, wrapping around a man's arm, pulling him down before Dante's fist silenced him. One by one they fell, leaving only the echo of his rage. When it was over, he dropped the belt and rushed to Isabella. Her wrists were bound, her face streaked with tears. Did they hurt you? He demanded, voice raw. She shook her head, trembling. No, but your hands? He looked down at his knuckles, torn and bleeding. It's nothing. She reached up, her fingers brushing the side of his face. You came for me? Always, he said simply. Back at the mansion, she cleaned his wounds in silence. Her hands shook, but she didn't look away, not from his blood, not from his pain. When she picked up the belt from the table, she whispered, This isn't who you are. He met her gaze. Then tell me who I am. Her voice was soft. Someone who still feels. For the first time, Dante looked at her not as his wife, but as the only person who could still save his soul. After the attack, Isabella refused to be the helpless girl in the corner anymore. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Dante bleeding, fighting alone. The guilt ate at her until one morning she found him in the courtyard, training with his men. His movements were sharp, controlled, violence turned into art. I want you to teach me, she said. Dante turned, surprised. Teach you what? How to protect myself. How to protect you. For a long moment he just stared. Then silently he tossed her the belt. The same one that had saved her life. Show me what you've got, wife. The first strike was clumsy. The second too soft. But she didn't stop. Each time she missed, Dante corrected her stance. His hands on her shoulders, his breath warm against her neck. Don't fight with fear, he murmured. Fight with purpose. The hours passed, sweat glistened on her skin and her laughter, light, real, filled the courtyard. When she accidentally struck his arm, she gasped. Oh my God. I'm sorry. But Dante only laughed. The sound startled her. It was deep, genuine, something she'd never heard before. You're dangerous now, Mrs. DeLuca. She smiled shyly, cheeks flushed. Maybe I'm learning from the best. Later that evening, she found him sitting by the fire, nursing a bruise she'd given him. She knelt beside him, taking the ice pack from his hand. You didn't have to let me win, she said softly. He looked at her, eyes dark but tender. You didn't win. You earned it. For a moment, silence wrapped around them, soft, intimate. His fingers brushed hers as he took the ice pack back. She didn't pull away. Something had changed between them. The fear that once built walls was slowly turning into trust. When she stood to leave, he said quietly, Next time I'll teach you how to disarm a man twice your size. She turned, smiling faintly. Why stop there? Dante's lips curved. You planning to disarm me too? Her voice trembled, but only slightly. Maybe I already have. The mansion had become quieter lately, but peace in Dante's world was always an illusion. One rainy night, Isabella wandered into his private study while he was away. She only meant to leave him dinner, but curiosity whispered louder than reason. Papers covered the desk, bank records, ledgers, coded notes. And then she saw it, her father's signature. Her breath caught. The contract that sealed her marriage. She read the words over and over, her heart breaking with each line. Debt settlement in full, payment accepted, Isabella Russo. Her knees buckled. All those months believing Dante might have chosen her, might have cared, had it all been a lie? When the door opened, she spun around. Dante stood there, rain dripping from his coat, eyes unreadable. "What are you doing in here?" "Tell me it isn't true," she whispered, voice shaking. "Tell me you didn't buy me like property." He stepped closer. "You shouldn't have seen that." "Then it is true," she said bitterly. "You saved me just to own me." Dante's expression darkened. "You think I wanted this? Your father came to me on his knees. You were the only thing he had left to trade." She shook her head, tears falling. "You could have said no." "I could have," he said softly. "But then someone else would have taken you, and I couldn't let that happen." His voice cracked for the first time, but she didn't hear it. The pain was too loud. She shoved past him, her words trembling. "I don't need your protection, Dante. I needed your truth." She ran out into the rain, the storm swallowing her sobs. By the time Dante reached the gates, she was gone. He stood there, drenched and silent, the belt still in his hand. The same belt that once symbolized his power now felt like a chain around his soul. He'd promised never to hurt her, but he'd already done the worst thing possible. He'd broken her heart. The rain hadn't stopped. It had been 2 days since Isabella left, and every second gnawed at Dante like a slow burn. He searched the city, his men combed every corner, but she'd vanished. Until one night he found her. Standing alone beneath the flickering sign of a small motel, her hair soaked, eyes hollow. She froze when she saw him. "Don't," she whispered. "Don't come closer." "I'm not here to drag you back," Dante said quietly. "Just to tell you the truth." She laughed bitterly. "Now you care about truth?" "Yes." His voice broke. "Because I don't know how to breathe without you." The words stunned her. Dante DeLuca, the cold Mafia Don, looked shattered. He stepped closer, slowly, like she was something sacred. "I didn't marry you because of your father," he said. "I married you because the moment I saw you, I knew you'd ruin me. And I wanted that." Her lips parted, trembling. "Then why hide it?" "Because I didn't think I deserved you." The storm howled between them, but inside that moment, everything went quiet. Dante reached out, his hand hovering near her cheek. "Let me prove it." She hesitated, then nodded faintly. He brushed the tears from her face, his thumb lingering. His touch was soft, reverent, almost afraid. The wall between them finally crumbled. When he leaned in, she didn't pull away. Their lips met, slow, uncertain at first, then deeper, desperate, as if trying to rewrite the pain that brought them there. When they finally parted, she whispered, "I want to go home." He smiled faintly. "You are home." Back at the mansion, the silence was no longer cold, it was warm, full of everything left unsaid. That night, under dim lights and soft breaths, she gave herself to him, body, heart, and soul. Every touch was a promise, every whisper a healing. "It hurts," she breathed softly, her tears mixing with his kisses. "I know," he whispered, holding her tighter. "But I'll never let it hurt like this again." For the first time, pain and love became one, and neither wanted it to end. Peace in Dante's world was always fragile. For a few fleeting weeks, Isabella felt it. His hand in hers at dinner, laughter echoing through the halls, the kind of warmth she'd once believed was impossible. But happiness paints a target. And someone was watching. One evening, as Dante prepared for a meeting with his inner circle, Isabella overheard voices outside his office. Low, urgent. "She's your weakness," a man hissed. "If we take her, the DeLuca empire falls." It was Marco, Dante's most trusted lieutenant. Her blood ran cold. She backed away before they could see her, her mind spinning. She wanted to warn Dante immediately, but it was too late. Gunfire shattered the night. The mansion erupted into chaos. Glass broke, men shouted, and Isabella was dragged from the hall by masked attackers. She fought wildly, remembering Dante's lessons. The stance, the grip, the focus. When one man lunged, she grabbed the nearest thing she could, Dante's belt lying across the floor. With trembling strength, she swung it, the metal buckle slicing through the air. It struck the man's arm and he stumbled back, stunned. Her fear turned to fury. She wasn't the trembling bride anymore, she was fighting for the man she loved. By the time Dante burst into the room, she was cornered but still standing, breathless and defiant. His eyes widened. Isabella. He took down the last of them in seconds, but the betrayal had already sunk deep. When he pulled off the mask of the fallen attacker, it wasn't a stranger. It was Marco. Why? Dante demanded, voice shaking with rage. Marco coughed blood, sneering. Because love made you weak, boss. Dante's fist trembled. For the first time, Isabella touched his shoulder, not to stop his anger but to anchor him. He's not worth your soul, she whispered. And somehow her voice cut through the storm of vengeance. Dante dropped the gun, breathing hard. When Marco was dragged away, Dante turned to Isabella. Blood streaked his face. Hers was smeared with tears, but in their eyes, something fierce had awakened. They had both fought for love. And now nothing could break them again. The night after the betrayal, Dante gathered his men in the courtyard. His orders were sharp, his tone colder than ever, but Isabella could see it in his eyes. Something inside him had cracked. He wasn't just fighting to protect his empire anymore. He was fighting to protect her. Every traitor will answer for what they did, he growled. No mercy. Isabella watched him from the balcony, heart heavy. The man who once vowed never to hurt again was slipping back into the darkness he'd fought so hard to escape. She ran to him before he could leave. Dante, please, don't let anger consume you. He paused, the rain already beginning to fall. If I don't end this now, they'll come for you again. I don't care, she cried. I just want my husband back, the man who held me when I was afraid. His expression softened for just a moment. You married a monster, Isabella? She stepped closer, her hand on his chest. No. I married a man who's trying to become something better. But he still went. The battle was brutal. Gunfire echoed through the docks. Dante fought like a man with nothing left to lose. He took out Marco's remaining men one by one, until the final shot rang out and he fell. When the call came, Isabella's world shattered. She rushed to the docks, the air thick with smoke and blood. Dante, she screamed, running to where he lay, bleeding, barely conscious. He tried to smile. You're here? Don't you dare leave me, she sobbed, pressing her hands against the wound. His voice was weak, but his eyes burned with the same fire that drew her to him from the start. You made me feel alive again, Bellamia. That's all I ever wanted. Then live for me, she whispered fiercely. Please. The sirens wailed in the distance as his men surrounded them. Isabella refused to let go of his hand, her tears falling on his chest. That night, the Don of New York didn't die, but a part of him did. And in its place, a new man was born, because of her. 3 months later, the DeLuca mansion felt different. The endless echo of gunfire had faded, replaced by laughter, piano music, and the quiet rhythm of peace. Dante had survived, but not unscarred. The bullet had taken a piece of his strength and the war had taken the rest. Now he walked with a cane, slower, quieter, but for the first time in his life he lived. Isabella never left his side. She handled the family affairs with poise that stunned everyone. The men who once feared the Don now respected La Donna di Sang, the Lady of Blood. One evening she found Dante in his study, staring at something on the wall. It was the belt, polished, hanging where his father's portrait once was. I should have thrown it away, he murmured. Why didn't you? She asked softly. He smiled faintly. Because it reminds me of the man I used to be, and the woman who changed him. She walked closer, wrapping her arms around him from behind. Then maybe it's time that symbol means something new. Taking the belt down, she looped it gently around his waist, fastening it herself. This doesn't belong to violence anymore, she whispered. It belongs to us. Dante turned, his hand tracing her cheek. You've turned every scar I carry into something holy. Her eyes softened. And you taught me that strength doesn't come from fear, but from love. He pulled her closer, their foreheads touching. The world outside no longer mattered. The empire, the power, the blood, all of it faded under the weight of what they'd built together. When she kissed him, it wasn't the trembling fear of a girl's first touch. It was the steady, certain love of a woman who had found her home in a man once feared by the world. The belt hung loosely around them as he whispered, You own more than my name now, Isabella. You own me. She smiled. Then I guess the Don finally learned to surrender. He laughed softly, the sound warm and free. To the only one I ever would. And as the night wrapped around them, the belt, their symbol of war, finally became a bond of love. Redheart.